Ooh, y'all made Miss Tina mad. She wanted to call us B's and O's, but instead she settled for bozos. Now, Beyonce has been giving us the Renaissance experience since she dropped Break My Soul in July of 2022. The day the tour ended, the last day in Kansas City at like midnight. This lady always posts when everybody's in bed. But anyway, she released a trailer for the Renaissance film.
I'm out of breath. We just need to simplify.
And of course, the girls were excited. Yes, we get to experience this again. We gonna be in our silver outfits again. Give me the cowboy hat, yeah. Wait, where's my fan? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I was there. Oh, whoa, whoa. My outfit was cute. I was a little disco cowboy. Don't at me. I know. Beyonce is out here promoting all manner of things, and literal menacide is happening. I know. I call her my anti-capitalist billionaire queen for a reason. If you get the joke, you get it. Anyway, Beyonce releases the film. Naturally, she has a film premiere. All the stars show up, but Beyonce shows up like this. Silver, platinum blonde hair. And when I saw it, I was like, girl, you didn't tell me you were also gonna... Because you see the... Okay. When I saw the photo, the first thing I thought was she looks washed the hell out. But you know what? That's what silver does when you are already what?
Light-skinned.
Because it seems like a lot of y'all are forgetting that Beyonce is and has always been
light-skinned.
That's not something that just happened. Like, I'm okay. But of course, people saw this photo, and instead of saying, oh, the platinum blonde hair, the silver outfit on light skin, winter time, although I think she lives in California, so I don't know, but you know, Beyonce wants to be white / is bleaching her skin. Y'all love to accuse people of bleaching their skin. Y'all do also understand that lighting is a thing. I have improved lighting in certain videos, or lighting that just like shows my complexion in a different way, and people will straight up ask me if I bleached my skin. Usually, this wouldn't even be that much of an issue, but then Miss Tina, Beyonce's mama, came in the chat and said, particularly because a white woman had the nerve to reach out to Beyonce's hairstylist for a comment on people accusing Beyonce of wanting to be white. Girl! Okay. The comment is here if you want to pause to read the rest of what Miss Tina said, because she gathered people. I found this all interesting because I've been observing a few things that we are, as Black folks, reevaluating our relationship to not only the one drop rule, which I will explain momentarily, but what it means to be biracial or mixed raced with X race and Black. I'm also observing a lot of gatekeeping of Blackness as a result of this reevaluating of the one drop rule. So we're gonna talk about all that. But first, bonjour, nakam, hi. My name's Khadija. Welcome back to my channel. Nieces, nephews, nibblings, aunties, knuckles, piblings. How y'all doing? If you're new, feel free to take a look around, suss out the vibe. I just sit in my living room and talk about whatever I want. And today, we talking about this biracial is in Black business. Biracial isn't Black to some of y'all. Why are we fighting? Jesus. We are currently, as I would say specifically Black Americans, and yes, I grew up in America. I am American and Canadian and Gambian. But I say this is also a Black Canadian experience too. There's a lot of mirroring with Black Canadian culture and American culture, but it's not necessarily the same. But in Canada and America, Black folks seem to be reevaluating, at least in the digital sphere, what it means to be Black. Before, if you had one drop of Black in you, you were just Black. And this is the one drop rule, also known as the one Black ancestor rule, also known as the traceable amount rule, also known as the hypodescent rule. It's basically a racial classification. And this is unique to Black Americans, and I would argue Canadians as well. Nowhere else in the world, as far as I'm aware of, has this sort of thinking when it comes to who is considered Black. And I did talk about this a bit in my colorism video with South America and how there are different distinctions of what would be classified as Black versus how we would do it in America and Canada. Pardon the interruption. But while I was working on this video, I came across another video of Tyla singing on Colors. And for those of you that don't know, Tyla is a South African singer who made her American debut on Jimmy Fallon. The song I think she's most known for now is Water, with folks doing the TikTok challenge, her performance, the water bottle. If you know, you know. Anyway, the Colors performance looked great. She always looks great, nice and dewy, you know, and a fabulous voice. Great performer. Naturally, my nosy ass goes to the comments, and people are really upset about her calling herself colored. Remember when I said that the one-drop rule is distinctly unique to the United States of America, and technically, I guess, Canada. Although if there are historians out there that can speak better to this, put a comment below. But I said that because it is. Tyla is from South Africa. They have a different relationship to blackness, to people being mixed, who's indigenous to the land, than Americans do. While indigenous South African groups would be considered black and descendants of British and Dutch colonists are white, a third group, colored, refers to South African citizens of mixed ethnicity, often descended from interracial couplings between native black Africans and white settlers. Tyla is Indian, Mauritian, and Zulu, so she is mixed race. For her, at least in South Africa, she would say she's colored. South African girlies, if you want to add more context and clarity to this, also chat below. We have to realize that America truly is not the center of the world. Western culture is not the center of the world. There are other perspectives. The Black diaspora is going to be filled with many different types of identifications, and that should be okay. This racial classification was used as a way to justify further exploitation and subjugation of anyone considered not white. And for this specific case, any type of black blood mixed in you, sorry, you're not pure enough, to eugenics, where purity and ableist thinking reigns supreme. We want the best human beings. We want the most sophisticated. We want the most, I don't know, y'all are weird. I just can't even think like that. Like, what does that even mean? Y'all think so highly of yourselves? Please. Kellogg, please. Look it up. Famous eugenicist. Anyway, what it means to be classified as white has changed over time. There were a lot of immigrants, Eastern European immigrants, famously the Irish. Gang, gang. What's up, y'all? Jewish folks, all classified under not necessarily being white. But this doesn't mean that they did not also participate sometimes in further subjugating black folks. Because if you're being subjugated and another group is being worse off than you, you're going to participate in that being worse off. I talked about how in Canada, a lot of the performers of blackface were Jewish and Irish immigrants. So, yeah. Like solidarity, y'all, but also let's not forget, because colorism is a real big issue. People that are darker skinned are the ones y'all be treating like, anyway, we'll get to it. But essentially this one drop rule was used as a way to gatekeep whiteness. And it's kind of funny because now I'm observing us doing the same thing to blackness. But I'm not saying it's not justified. I think a lot of us have become more critical of this proximity to whiteness and what that does to how much solidarity you can actually have with that person, not just based off of the different experiences you might have, but also maybe the privileges or things they're willing to put up with versus what you are or are not because you can't afford to. Hopefully that made sense. I don't know how else to say it. But I'm going to be vulnerable and speak to any sort of negative ill will or weird feelings I might have had towards biracial and mixed race people when they are mixed with black and other things. Mainly being that their race is mutable. Depending on how mixed your background is, people don't always know how to classify you. And that's something to me that I will admit I'm envious of, because it's like, oh, you're able to not have the stereotypes and perceptions associated with X identity placed on you because people don't know what you're all mixed with. Now, I am ethnically mixed, and what I mean by that is Gambian, Canadian, American. Lived in Canada and America 15 years each respectively, now a year longer in Canada or two. I've been back and forth to Gambia. My family is Gambian. So I do identify with mixed and biracial people in terms of sometimes not feeling like you have a place to belong. At least for me, culturally, that would be the issue, because I was never quite black enough to hang out with black folks, but I was also an immigrant, so that was also off. But I was still black, so sometimes I could kick it. But I also wasn't white, so that was also a weird background to be in. And then I'd go to Gambia and they'd be like, well, you're white. And I was like, but I'm not white. It was a very confusing thing. So I do sympathize with anyone that is mixed race or biracial that feels like they're in this limbo space and they don't feel like they have a place that they belong because they're not one thing. But sometimes some of y'all use that to your advantage, which, hey, get in where you fit in. But then you don't show up for the people that are part of that group or identity that you allegedly belong to. You only belong to them when you wanted the cool cachet. In the 90s, early 2000s, and the 2010s, Black culture started becoming more dominant. And not just dominant, but also a cool cachet. From clothing to music to the way some of y'all talk. It became clear that Black American culture was the zeitgeist. And as a result, a lot of people were trying to bank in on that. A certain family of people, especially. And then we all remember the Rachel of it all.
Are you African American?
I don't understand the question.
No, I'm not gonna lie. Some of these racially ambiguous folks, trust issues. I was having trust issues, especially because in the 2010s, when things were kind of peaking, people were also protesting. Black lives were mattering, still do. It became all the more clear that the racial issues that this country and Canada, you're not excluded. Come on, girl. Don't act like, okay. That the racial issues going on in these countries was just kind of under the surface. And I will say, at least in America, at least in the South, people were way more upfront with you. Canada, people just love to be passive aggressive about it. The microaggression was invented in Canada. Like, I just keep thinking of that letter Kim Kardashian wrote when she realized she was going to have Black kids. And like, I get it. She's not Black, but like, it's the obtuseness and the like audacity of knowing you're profiting off of this culture, saying shit like, we love Black guys and they just love us and blah, blah, blah. And then having children with a Black man and really just man, I don't understand. Je ne comprends pas. Like, it's truly. Anyway, also a side observation is just this idea that so many mixed and biracial people that maybe are like a quarter Black be braiding their follicles down in the most uncomfortable looking ways to like show that they are Black. I'm just like, you could just stand in solidarity with Black folks and like to hang around Black people and other types of people and not need to be Black. You know what I'm saying? With this mutability, this proximity to lightness, not necessarily whiteness, because you can be mixed with a bunch of different stuff, but to lightness, this long history of cultural appropriation and folks loving Black culture for a time. And then when it was time to show up and stand up for Black lives, y'all were like, bye. But some of y'all, you know who you are. It makes sense to me why more Black folks are becoming more gatekeepy about who they classify as Black or not. Because not all skin folk is kin folk. If you just think the idea of Blackness is cool because the way it's sold to you in the media and stuff, but the experience of Blackness is not something to identify with. And it can also be different for Black people. Like, Black people are not a monolith. The experience of being Black is going to be very different depending on your class, depending on your gender expression, depending on how all those things intersect, all the things. Like I said, you can appreciate a culture and a people and fuck with them heavy and stand in solidarity with them and not need to play into being, I don't know, the stereotypes of that group. You can be mixed and biracial and honor all the parts of yourself that make you who you are. And if people don't get it and don't want to fuck with it, then they don't. We know that somewhere in Beyonce's ancestry, there are some light folks. There has to be. You don't get that complexion if there aren't. That just doesn't make sense, right? But Beyonce grew up in a time, and her mom did as well, where biracial meant Black, where one drop meant Black, and they were treated as Black. So if you are going through that, you're treated that way, you experience that from your lineage, and you identify with being black, somebody coming up to you and accusing you of trying to be white because you're wearing blonde hair and you have lighter skin and you just are lighter, that would be a slap in the face. I really do feel like that would be. I'm not just saying it for Beyonce, for anybody. It's fun to roast and joke with people about their black card and how black are they or not. But for some people, it really is a tug of war between their identities. Sometimes it can be hard to have compassion for that, because if you're mixed with an identity that gives you a certain amount of privilege in this world that you're not even aware of or that you don't acknowledge, and you can benefit from blackness and the coolness of that, but then you can dip out when shit gets too real, that's going to be irritating to me. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for other people, though I think some of y'all need to be more honest about how you're feeling. But I also understand that when you're mixed with different things, sometimes it feels like you have to pick one because the world doesn't like to accept the contradictory and ever-changing nature of human beings. I think colorism is the root of a lot of problems and would unite a lot more people if we use that instead of thinking about races. But I understand that these classifications have been around not forever, but it seems like they've been around forever because it's all our recent history. It's all we've ever known. People have created culture and tradition and beautiful things out of these categorizations. And so I understand why people have an attachment to certain identities, certain factors of their identity, and what it means, the significance of that. I also think that a lot of our tribalisms and frustrations with difference from those that aren't in our tribe are causing a lot more problems than good. I know that many of us grew up in a time where being any amount of black still classified you as black because white people saw you as such. And now it's difficult because black people are like, I don't care what white people think. We don't think you black. So bye. And there's going to be that tension. There's going to be that frustration. I don't know if in my lifetime I'll see people give up some of this tribalism and come together just on the basis that we're human beings. I know it's cheesy to say and hippy dippy and blah, blah, blah. I know. A gal can dream. Can I? I do believe that we can acknowledge that people are mixed, biracial, whatever, acknowledge the different parts of their identity and still treat them as people that you might have some things in common with because of some parts of their identity and not so much other things, just like anybody else. I get mixed people feeling damned if they do, damned if they don't, of like, if I say I'm black, y'all turn around and say, you're not black. Biracial isn't black. But then if I say I'm not black, I'm mixed, y'all get upset. Y'all did this with Megan. People are like, why is she acting like this? It is okay. It is okay to be frustrated and irritated and hurt that mixed and biracial folks, not even just recently, I talked about more recent history, but even way back then, things like the paper bag test, the blue vein society. This is all stuff I talk about in my colorism video. Even back then, biracial mixed folks that were closer to lightness would use that as a technique to push darker skinned black folks out, to exclude them, to separate themselves from them, to try to gain a little bit more power. But do you see how the real enemy in all of this is trying to have this proximity to lightness or this proximity to whiteness and not necessarily the people that are different complexions that are just trying to exist? Y'all see, do y'all pick up what I'm putting down? I don't know. If you're mixed race, biracial with some in black, and you definitely either have a platform or make money off of, or just enjoy the culture, but you don't show up, girl, come on now. Anyway, some things to think about, some things to ponder. Again, these are just my observations, so I'm not going to get every single point. I'm not going to be thinking the exact thing you were thinking in your brain just because I've done it in other videos. I am also can't think for you. You can watch this video. If you even watched all the way through, this is salty, but most of y'all don't. If you even watched all the way through, then ponder about the video and then leave a comment, you know? Usually if you watch all the way through, you're the kind of person that would think about it for a bit and leave a comment, or you're leaving a comment throughout. So I see y'all. Anyway, As always, be sure to feed your plets, water your plets, and remember that you can always change your mind because you can. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.